So welcome everybody that's coming into the room. We're getting ready to start in about 3 minutes. Our webinar about teaching with augmented reality. We're so excited tonight to have such an amazing panel, and we're glad you guys are here. And we're going to live stream on YouTube also. So we're bringing up the streams and getting everybody in the room. We love you, Peggy. You know how much we all love you. So we've got some folks coming in now, and YouTube is getting ready to come up. So we'll start here in just a few minutes. So welcome everybody coming on in. We will have the Q&A up, so you're welcome to put questions in the Q&A. You're welcome to put questions in the chat or say hello. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, I encourage everybody to go in the chat and say, you know, who you are, where you're from, and what you do. So if you also want to share why you're interested in AR, that would be great also. So let me see. Trying to live stream this webinar on YouTube, which is kind of hanging. It got hung on me there for a second. We have folks coming in the room. We're going to type in the chat. And we're going to say welcome to the chat. Here we go. Okay, we'll be live streaming. Panelists, I have given you the link for the live stream. So we are live, and there's the link to the live stream if you want to share it out. We're going to start probably in about 2 minutes while folks are coming in the room here. So we're excited to have a conversation on augmented reality tonight. So if some of you guys... Hi, Tamara from New Mexico. We're so glad you're here. I'm glad you're into AR. Tell us about what you're doing. Yes, we will send. Yeah, so we do have a YouTube live for this, for the recording. I'll share that link with everybody, Peggy. Sure. And if you'll just introduce yourself in the chat and say who you are, where you're from. And I'm a teacher from Camilla, Georgia. I teach computer science. We will start in about 1 more minute, letting a few folks come in the room. We've got the live stream coming up. Hey, Michael from Malaysia. So glad you're here. How are you using augmented reality? If you want to share that in the chat, that would be
Michael
great.
Harvey. Woo!
You know Michael?
I know Michael. Kurt's on.
That's when we say the doctor is in the house.
Hey, Kurt. Kurt's in there.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we got more attendees jumping in the room here. I know I heard from quite a few folks who emailed me and said, hey, I'm going to listen to this afterwards. But we've shared the link for YouTube, and we are getting ready to start, everybody. Panelists, are we about ready here?
Absolutely.
Okay, everybody ready. So let's go ahead and get started. Good, Michael. So as you guys come in, as attendees come in the room, if you want to share in the back channel chat who you are, where you're from. We've also got the Q&A. We will have a Q&A with questions at the end. So feel free to share those as well. So we're excited tonight to be talking about teaching with augmented reality with some AR enthusiasts. We actually toyed with the idea of using the term rock stars, but I don't think anybody will let themselves be called a rock star in AR because we still feel like it's kind of new, don't we, ladies? We're still all learning, but these are definitely some of the experts in augmented reality that are with us tonight. So this event is sponsored by 3D Bear, but we're just so excited because the folks at 3D Bear just really want us to have a conversation about what is going on in augmented reality. So I'm going to introduce each of the panelists, and if you guys will just wave at everybody. So we have MaryAlice Curran with us. She is the founder and executive director of the Digital Citizenship Institute. I was fascinated to hear Jamie talk about some of MaryAlice's work with accessibility inside augmented reality. So that's definitely something we're going to have to pull in tonight. So if you guys are interested in accessibility, if you'll just make sure you ask some questions in the Q&A or in the chat and let us know about that. So MaryAlice has a digital citizenship course. And MaryAlice, if you want to throw that in the chat for everybody, that would be awesome. And has so many different things that she does with digital citizenship. And MaryAlice, I was looking at some things with you and your son, and I would love to get you both on my podcast too, because I think that's awesome to do that together. So there's a lot of information on MaryAlice, and I hope you guys will check her out. Glad you're here tonight, MaryAlice.
I'm so happy to be with all of you and to be talking about this specifically from that perspective of accessibility and inclusion as well. So really happy to be here.
Awesome. Okay, and so we have Rochelle Poth, and she and I had her on my podcast, and we were like, that was 2017. I thought that, I swore that was this year, Rochelle, and she's done so many things. She's a keynote speaker. She has courses that she's taught. She's fascinating because she's an attorney and has a master's degree in instructional technology. So she has a very unique perspective, 20 Watch by the NSBA. And just has so many other things that she's done and so many places that she blogs and shares. Thanks for being with us, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Excited that you're here. Okay, and so let's go to our a third panelist, and Jamie really gets the credit for putting together all of these amazing folks because she is the founder of the AR, VR, and Edu community, which is an important place for those who are doing augmented reality or virtual reality to connect. It's a Twitter chat. And that Twitter chat, I believe, is going on as we speak. Right, Jamie?
That's correct. Well, I just said, hey, forget about this Twitter chat. Come join us here because, you know, this is what we're talking about. They could be part of the conversation on YouTube, which is perfect. So, and also in here inside of the chat and Zoom as well. So it's just cool to have everybody's participation.
Yeah, so we've got some amazing folks and we're ready to get talking. I'm not really going to talk about myself. I'm the Cool Cat Teacher, and I have a podcast called The 10-Minute Teacher. And you can take a look at my blog if you want to see things about me. We also have 3D Bear, who is our webinar sponsor. I have an upcoming review that will be posted about 3D Bear and some really cool things that are going on with that. But they really wanted us to talk tonight about the pedagogy of augmented reality. Now, we know that we can't just take a new technology and use old pedagogy. You have to create new pedagogy based on research and based on what we know works. We have to do that with new technologies. So this is really evolving, and we wanted to have a conversation about how the teaching process works. So MaryAlice, we're going to start with you. How does the teaching process work with you and augmented reality in the classroom?
You know, I happen to be an untraditional learner. So as an untraditional learner, I've brought that into my own teaching practice. And, you know, in many ways, I feel like this is that opportunity, you know, where that expression about, you know, you're not going to be you're the guide on the side. I'm learning alongside my students. And that to me, it is that actionable piece to learning, you know, rather than that sit and get. This is an opportunity that we can learn side by side. Instead of talking at students, we're talking with students, we're learning together. So I really, that's to me, the environment that really you thrive in using emerging technologies, specifically right now as we're talking about augmented reality.
Oh, wait. It's my turn, right?
Yeah. Well,
I thought maybe you were going to say, but no, I'm going to say, I'm going to echo what MaryAlice said, because I know that when I first started teaching, I use it in primarily my 8th grade STEAM course. And that's been probably about 2 years ago, I think, that I started using that, and I teach Spanish. And so all of the students in my Spanish classes were asking like, well, how come we can't, you know, do the cool things like with the AR and VR? And I said, well, I don't know, why can't you? So we started to do that. But one thing I found is there are so many things out there that are coming every day. It seems like you hear of a new feature or a new tool. And like MaryAlice said, the best part about it is like, you don't have to have all the answers, but just getting there with the students and letting them teach you. Because if they were only confined to like the knowledge that I have, we wouldn't go very far sometimes, because the learning curve on some things, like they pick up things so quickly. And I just love the reaction they get when they actually realize that they have taught me something. And like she said too, I like to get out of the way of them. And instead of talking at them all of the time, I like to sit down and talk with them and just let them take the lead a little bit more. So I think the main shift has been, we're not just delivering the content to them. We're kind of letting them figure it out on their own and problem solve, and then just learning along with them.
And it's just so powerful because they can just bring things into the classroom. I mean, linking, like I know 3D Bear linking with Thingiverse and being able to pull in STL files, and then using other apps where you can just pull things in together. It's just, it's just limitless how you can, I guess, mash up all of these 3D objects, isn't it, Rochelle?
Yes, it is unbelievable what they can do, especially when they find out that they can put something around me and I see them giggling at me across the room. I'm like, is there a dancing like ice cream cone behind my head? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, they were filming me and they're like, we made a raptor eat your head. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. And we filmed it. Okay, Jamie, talk about how the teaching process works in your classroom because you teach languages, right?
Actually, that would be Rochelle.
Rochelle teaches languages. I'm sorry, I got confused.
She does everything. She's like a jack of all trades. I think she's STEM, robotics, science, like every languages. So on my end, though, I actually, at this point, just teach teachers, to go and bring it back to their classroom. So I kind of live vicariously through Rochelle, because I'll say, oh my gosh, try this with your kids and tell me what happens, or I try it with my own kids, my own students, or I have a chance to share this maybe with a district with students and sharing different things and getting their feedback. But one of the things that I think is really important in this question is using those old pedagogies. And it's so funny because teachers that are kind of stuck with doing it that same way, they're like, but I'm doing it in AR, like AR magically, or VR magically makes your teaching so much better, which it doesn't. AR, VR is a tool just like any other technology or any other resource in your classroom, and how you use it has to be effective, and it has to work with your kids. You have to know your students. You have to know what you're looking for. So while the tool is amazing, you really have to have a grip on what is your goal with this technology. And once they really get like what they want to get out of it, then you find, does AR, VR really fit, or something else fit? What is the best technology or the best resource I can bring in that will really help solidify that learning for that student?
I think that's important, Jamie. It always starts with what you want to do. Now, yeah, it's important for them to understand what is AR and what is VR. So many jobs are going to be displaced by AR in particular. I read somewhere the 28% of jobs, when you have AR combined with AI, of course, artificial intelligence, and all that augmented reality can do, it's going to be fascinating what happens. It's definitely a technology thing to understand, but you're right. We have to get past the technology and say, what is it we want to do? Do you think that's hard, Jamie, to get teachers past that? Or do they just think, oh, it's technology, so kids are going to be interested?
I think even in instructional technology, when I was working with district, educators, when I was working inside of the districts, that seems to be the biggest part of any technology that you're talking about, or really anything. People get caught up in the wow of like, ooh, that's so cool, or wow, let's do that. When really, like you said, we're working backwards, because there's going to be times the AR, VR is going to hit home and help our kids learn in a way that would be impossible without it. But there's going to be times you actually have to have a physical object to be able to manipulate and discover. There's going to be times that you're going to have to physically get up and explore something that isn't going to be related to technology at all. So really identifying like, what are my kids struggling with, instead of, and this is what happens, and maybe you all three or all of us can relate to here, is that you go and share tools and people are pumped about the tools and they're like, okay, how can I make this fit into my curriculum? When really, to be the flip side, right? Like, what is my curriculum? Where are my kids struggling? What resources do I need? It should be backwards. Does that, is that if it's not fitting the needs of your curriculum, then you're working backwards, and it's really never going to be maximized to what it could possibly offer your kids.
So we have a question. Christine has asked, what is the difference between AR and VR? Who wants to tackle that question real quickly for us? I mean, I could answer it, but I think one of our panelists, which one of you guys wants to kind of talk briefly about the difference between AR and VR? Jamie. I see you nodding your head. Go ahead.
Oh, I am muted.
Hey, you know what? How about this? I'll describe AR and you can describe VR. How about that, Rochelle? Well, AR is augmented reality. It's really looking through whatever device you have, whatever lens you're using, to look at your real world, but layer it with something else. So everything I can see in augmented reality, I'm going to see everything around me, but I'm also going to see a layer of something digital that gives me the illusion like that digital object is in my space. So that's kind of that could be through a iPad, it could be through a Chromebook, it could be through glasses. So, it could be through your phone. So in all of those places, whatever your camera view is, whatever you're looking through, that augmented reality then is layered on top. So that's AR.
Yeah. And one thing I always tell my students is the A in augment means to add to something. And I think it's important to remember that right now we might be looking through iPhones and we might be looking through iPads, but our glasses, that's what's next. Contacts is going to be lagging behind, a good 4 to 5 years because they're still having issues with those, because think about having to miniaturize everything and be able to put it, in your eye. But augmented reality, as I tell my students, the future of the computer is no computer, and the future of the cell phone is no cell phone. We're going to be wearing it. It's just where it's going. So we're kind of in the infancy of it. So Rochelle, talk to us about what is VR.
Okay, so whenever I first started teaching this with my STEAM class, and I said to them, what's augmented reality? What's the #1 app? And of course, they're talking about, I know Jamie plays it, I think, right? Pokemon, is that right? Did you play it? That was like the first thing.
Gosh. I'm like the worst Pokemon player, but MaryAlice's son is a rock star, and Sarah Thomas.
I was just going to say Sarah Thomas too. Yeah. And I have a friend, and my friend Z does that. And so for the students, like to explain something at the 8th grade level of, like a technical terms versus giving them an example of something they might interact with. So that was kind of the go-to with the AR. For virtual reality, it's more, you are immersed in your environment. So you have the headset on and you cannot distinguish between your physical space that you're actually in compared to the space that you're exploring. And so for me, like 2 weeks ago, I had taken my Oculus Go in, and my 8th grade students, like the background on it was the Golden Gate Bridge. And I mean, you really feel like you're there and interacting. So they're looking around and all comfortable. And one of them happened to look down and screamed because they're like on the side of a cliff. And so, being able to really immerse yourself in that and interact with whatever's in that space and look closely at and explore. And for me as a foreign language teacher, I mean, that was like a huge game changer, because being able to take my students to like look around Machu Picchu or different places rather than looking at a, picture in a book, it took it to a whole other level. So just being fully immersed, interacting a little bit, exploring more than just, seeing that you can still see your blackboard or something behind that space in your classroom.
I forgot to unmute again. There we go. So thank you, Christine, for asking that question. It was an excellent question. Please, if anybody has a question, feel free to throw that in the Q&A. So Jamie, we're going to go to question number 2 now. Does every student need to have a device? And what are some best practices if every student does not have a device to use augmented reality in your classroom?
Yeah. So I'm like literally trying to keep up with AR, VR, and EDU as well, because they're all commenting on what everybody's talking about, which is awesome. And they're probably in here with us as well. So very cool to see this on Twitter as well as YouTube and in Zoom. When it comes to devices, I think that is a huge topic. Everybody thinks, this is a common question. Hey, what viewer do I need to buy? Oh, okay, viewer, you're thinking about viewer. Well, what devices do you have? Oh, I need a device. oh, I need to go out and buy a device with this. Well, we don't have devices. We just have iPads. Okay, well, then I guess I don't want a viewer. Well, then you're talking about something standalone. And that's, you know, is that something that's going to be, you know, AR and VR? So you start kind of talking to people about what they're looking for in devices, because they start there. They're not starting at, what is my goal and what do I want to accomplish here? Because when they're going out and making these purchases, they don't really understand that most of what they can do right now is with the tools they already have in their classroom. So the tablets that they have in their classroom, even the Chromebooks or your student devices that you're bringing in. So in using those devices, I think that there are so many incredible AR and VR tools. I know we're talking about 3D Bear tonight, and with 3D Bear, they have it accessible on mobile devices and tablets. And so being able to use these incredible resources in your classroom with the tools you already have. And I will point out, this is one area that I think is a huge win for 3D Bear that won me over last year at FETC, is they have technology that is using AR Kit. So they're using some really current technology, which is incredible, and it's doing some really neat stuff. But they also make it accessible on older devices. So if you don't have the right device to function with that new technology, it's still okay. It doesn't function as well, but they make it accessible even on the older devices. So I really like that they kind of made that bridge in there. But again, I also don't ever say, hey, everybody needs a device, because I think more commonly than not, we don't need to all have our own individual device doing this. Typically teamwork or station setup or whatever that might be, that group work is sufficient for that one device for them to collaborate and explore and learn together. So while most people think that every kid needs a viewer and every kid needs a tablet or every kid needs a, the Google Expeditions kit, every kid needs to have something on their face, it's not necessarily true. And also another common question is, okay, we're going to buy this. Well, how's your network? Is your network able to sustain all of that technology that you're bringing in? I just spoke to somebody today that said, no, I brought in Class VR and our network can't keep up with a lot of what's happening, because it's, it could be a bandwidth hog when you're talking about virtual reality, especially. So in considering all those things, there's a lot of other questions to ask before you ever get to the point of purchases or usage. But this technology, is incredible as it is, I really don't think that in every case do we need to each have a student with a device. And I'm sure actually other people have some comments on that as well, because I'm not in the classroom doing this necessarily. So it'd be great to hear other.
Yeah. MaryAlice, you or Rochelle, do you have all of your students with devices that you work with, or what do you have?
Well, for me, the 8th graders that I have, some of them do have their own devices. Otherwise, I borrow some iPads from the library, and we kind of go into that space and use either the desktops or the iPads. But one problem we run into is that with our network and the content filters, not all of them, can we use all the different apps, and the iPads are older. So there are some of the newer tools that we just can't have on that. So if the students have the phones, sometimes I'll just have them kind of work in like stations, because I set up stations in my room, or I'll take my iPad in, or I'll take my Oculus Go in and just let them kind of move around and explore, have options. Like I had a bunch of merge cubes. We even printed the big ones. So the 7th graders also, we didn't have enough for everybody to use. So it was just, making different stations so that each student can move around and you have everything for everybody, just not at the exact same time. And that worked out really well.
Yeah, I think the station approach, particularly when, because typically I am using augmented reality when using virtual reality. And for me, virtual reality requires 2 people. I require that we have a watcher and a wearer. And so they have to have both because of safety reasons, which we won't really talk about that tonight. But, even with augmented reality, depending on what they're wearing, there can be some safety issues. Do you what do y'all do for safety? Do you have somebody who kind of keeps an eye on the person who's in augmented reality or virtual reality, or do y'all have any issues with that in your classrooms like I have? I mean, they'll fall over a chair if they're not paying attention.
I was just going to say with MaryAlice, I put her into an Oculus Go. She should have had somebody watching her for safety because we were playing Face Your Fears.
And it was at MassQ, and people were like worried for my safety, like just from my reaction alone. I definitely had sent off the alarms that, did they need to call an ambulance or something? But that's because how real the fear was during that moment.
Yeah. So, so the point is here, you don't necessarily have to have everybody with a device, and you'll kind of see how that works. I know in my classroom, I'll typically have at least two with each device, typically two. Okay, so now we're going to have Rochelle talk about a project that her students have created in AR and how you assessed them on the project. Talk to us, Rochelle.
Well, one of the ones that we started to do last year was with Metaverse, and, talking about like getting started with it in the classroom. I remember when I found it over the summer, I guess that was 1.5 years ago now, probably. And I don't even want to admit how long it took me to create my own experience that really wasn't that great. But then I took my students into the library and I just gave them some guidelines. I just said I wanted them to include certain parts into their experiences, but I didn't really want to tell them what kind of an experience to create. I wanted to just see, where they went with it. And the number one thing is they loved creating with it and their ideas were so unique. But I had some guidelines and I said that I wanted them to go through, a certain process, a number of scenes and things to put into it. So I kind of assessed them that way. And just even, it doesn't have to be, I've learned, and I'm still learning, it doesn't have to be like a specific, like a tangible form of assessment. I mean, it comes in forms of, conversations with them. And something that really I thought was quite awesome when I had them doing this project was some of the students put in like, I think one of the students had like 40 different scenes and there were all of these different options. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And then there was another student who loved creating them so much that over the weekend, I think I got 3 or 4 more that he had created because he sent a note and said, I figured maybe just have some downtime during the weekend and you might like to try out this metaverse experience. And it was just awesome to see that, they had taken that initiative. And so then the next thing I did, since there's only one of me and I clearly don't have all the answers because I'm still learning, a couple of the students that really seemed to like excel at it and were enjoying it, I asked them if they would help me kind of like facilitate and teach and work with their classmates, which was funny because when I called them in, they thought they were in trouble. I'm like, no, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. So just, along the way, making sure that they're able to do certain tasks and parts of it and they understand where to find the things. I think that's important so that they know if they want to create something. Like, I think a big part of it too is they feel certain students even teachers feel like one tool only has one purpose or can only be used in one grade or one level or content area. And there's such applicability with tools like this. And I know, and I haven't done this yet, but I know there are teachers who are creating, quizzes and assessments using a tool like Metaverse, or just, I had my Spanish students create spaces with co-spaces that tied into the content that they were studying about their childhood. And while they were assessed on the grammar and the content they included, the creation part of it was more just to give them a little bit something extra that they could really enjoy and engage with. So I think there's all kinds of ways that you can do it. And I'm definitely here to learn from everybody else. If anyone wants to share any ideas that they've done as well, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, and I know that, for me in my class, since we've been experimenting with 3D Bear, very often and there's features in 3D Bear that let you take pictures, but I like to have them turn on their video capture feature on their iPhone or their iPad to video what they're doing and explanations as they interact with things. So, I've kind of appreciated and liked having those videos. And then I actually have them shoot the video and turn it in Google Classroom because it's so easy on your iPhone or your iPad to just upload a video in Google Classroom. So there's so many ways they can also share it into the classroom inside 3D Bear. There's just many different ways. Anybody else want to tackle assessment? MaryAlice or Jamie?
No, thank you.
We do have to assess. I mean, we always have purpose, right? Well, MaryAlice, we're going to head over to you. We're going to talk about how do we get started and what is a suggestion of a first project for teachers beginning in augmented reality? And Peggy, what I mean by shoot the video, you can just turn on that video button on iPhones. You can just turn it in where you're recording the screen. So, you know, that's kind of how you can do that. Okay, MaryAlice, over to you. How do we get started?
So Vicki, I will never try to pretend that I am an expert in emerging technology at all. Like, my area of expertise is definitely a different angle. I'm definitely coming from a perspective on digital citizenship. And I see that emerging technology is really the future of digital citizenship. And as we all know, the future is already here. So that really, like, to answer this question is perfect, because I'm not like, I'm the perfect example of someone that would be afraid to try this. And just fear out of, I don't know what to expect. But because how I explained before about being an untraditional learner, I happen to be really comfortable in uncomfortable situations and always being a learner first. So like, I like the idea that my learning curve is always stuck in a curved position. And so to get started, it's really about changing this mindset to learn alongside our students. And it is so user-friendly to like just get up and start. I went onto the website, and I'm going to read it right off the website. Empowering and engaging every student. And so when I saw that, I was like, ding, 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 ding. You've got my attention. But when I think about every student, I am coming from a different perspective with, you know, accessibility and inclusion. And so I happen to be dyslexic. My husband is deaf. I wanted to know, and I wanted to experience for the very first time, what would augmented reality, 3D Bear in particular, what would this be like? You could create being deaf, but if I were narrating it in the video, how would somebody that, you know, has a hearing loss or is deaf be able to participate? And so that's when I did a little app smashing, and I took what I had created in 3D Bear, and so easily, like, and this is not, I'm not technically savvy, but it's so easy to do. I was able to embed that within clips and get the closed captions. And that's when I was like, this is just a game changer. So my suggestion for question number 4 is just to jump into the deep end, get your students excited. I know that Linda Edwards is joining us. And Linda and Tracy Mercier, we've been really exploring using 3D Bear, augmented reality, in books. So I want you to know, I was on the road last week with the children's author, Jerry Pallotta, and his books, his nonfiction books, were like made for 3D Bear. And it changes everything. And I feel like Linda can share on Twitter some of her examples. She has shared them, whether she wants to put them in the chat or not. But like, this is as simple as getting students excited about learning. And this, as Jamie had said it before, this is just one more tool that adds a really cool layer of complete engagement.
So explain just real quickly the app smashing piece. I did define in the chat. Of course, app smashing is when you use multiple apps and you kind of think of it as using each app for what it does best. You know, so the point guard dribbles down the court and then you pass it to the tall guy under the basket, right? And then somebody else rebounds. And like, so when you app smash, each app does what it does best. So MaryAlice, what apps are you using in this kind of chain of apps?
Okay, so I really am particularly interested in getting the closed captions in. And so I was using 3D Bear. And when I had that video, I then was uploading that video into clips and adding the closed captions, which is just another layer to ensure that all of our learners are inspired and are empowered to use this learning tool.
Yeah. And I teach digital film. So, you know, you can film yourself or your friend in a scene with a raptor. You know, I mean, it's just really cool stuff you could do with just filming.
Oh my gosh. And just even with, then when I was on the road there, and it's already, I tweeted it out last week, to have Jerry and have with some of his books that he's like talking about. And then, you know, we've got all of, you know, I had Santa Claus and dinosaurs, but his books they're fantastic. He definitely writes for struggling readers, like just to get them in nonfiction, but perfect way to start.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. So, and now we're putting on our futuristic hat and we're predicting where will augmented reality be in 5 years? Because here's something that's really important to understand, teachers. So way back in the 90s, I'm kind of saying my age, and MaryAlice, they're asking you what Jerry's last name is, if you'll drop it in the chat. I got in the cell phone business and people said, well, nobody's going to want cell phones because they cost $1,000 and they weigh 5 pounds each because we have those big bag phones. And I said, yeah, but it's not going to cost that forever. And it's not going to be that size forever. You've got to look at where we're heading with cell phones. And just in the 4 years I was in the cell phone business, it changed so much. And, you know, so think of augmented reality, virtual reality, these types of things. We're kind of at the bag phone stage sometimes. I mean, we've obviously got tools like our sponsor today, 3D Bear, that are really come a lot. This has come a long way. I mean, we can have a classroom now where they can share artifacts with each other. I mean, that's huge. But let's just say, okay, let's don't really talk apps. Let's talk in 5 years, where are we going to be? So, MaryAlice, you were just talking. I'm actually going to go with Rochelle first and then come back to you. Okay, Rochelle, you go.
Did I win?
Yes, you win. You go.
You know, I think that one of the biggest things that comes to mind right now is just the way that students learn. You know, now just in talking like with some of my students about math and objects and being able, you know, you look at the object in your math book, and I picked math because it's an area I struggled with. But with augmented reality, you know, students can then have it in their hands and look at it and explore it and have different, you know, questions arise because of the way that they're looking at it and how they're viewing it. Things that you possibly can't even come in contact with, you know, in medical field later on, where students are studying science or anything, you know, being able to actually see that object or even create their own objects in a space and then use it to tell a story, or have teachers that create different spaces and have students solve math problems or narrate a story about something that's been popped up into a space. I think it's just really going to open up the opportunity for, you know, like we talk about student engagement and their motivation and just being connected to the learning and being able to say, oh yeah, I held this, I don't know, this sports car in my hand, or I could look around and really get a close look at maybe the space station or something. It's going to attach more meaning to students for learning. And I think in the long term, it's going to really amplify like what they take away from the class, besides just the content, just the skills that they're learning, like curiosity and collaboration and critical thinking and just solving problems, because they're interacting more than just looking at a book or just listening into a teacher, like how I was talking at them all the time. And hopefully the students will be doing a lot more creating with it too, not just kind of consuming it, and actually be the ones that are developing or creating apps. I mean, hopefully.
Absolutely. Okay, Jamie.
All right. Well, I just want to point out something that this is, if this was my wish list of what would happen in 5 years, you know, if I can skip ahead, I'm just reading Tamara's response. Took my grandma, who can't travel anymore, on a VR trip. She almost cried and she loved it so much. And that to me is what this technology can do. It could totally, yes, it can make a new way of learning. Yes, we have opportunities to explore, like Rochelle's talking about, all of those things. We see that now. But I think giving our students an opportunity to learn in a way that they've never been able to learn, and nothing that we can even understand quite yet. I think that browser-based augmented and virtual reality, so WebXR, is really going to be significant in 5 years from now. I think we're not going to have to download apps anymore. We're not going to have the latest gadget anymore. It's all going to be browser-based, and I think that's going to transform and really move us ahead in the classroom for sure. But I think the accessibility is going to be very different. It's not going to be something that's limited to just who has this device and who's tech savvy enough. I think we're going to see this definitely mass usage. But when I just read that story from Tamara, who left that about her grandma, it reminds me of Dr. MaryAlice Curran, whose father did some amazing technology, worked with some technology to help support students that were nonverbal, that basically nobody knew that they can communicate at all. Maybe their whole life, maybe since an accident or whatever they experienced, but literally gave no indication that they were able to communicate by no way, shape, or form. And then there was this incredible technology that gave them a chance to be able to use their eyes, to be able to manipulate their brow or their mouse pad, and to be able to communicate by typing in things or looking all through their eyes, and to be able to finally for the first time communicate. I just think this is the technology that can do those things. It could bridge that gap. It can give us a chance to engage with people across the world like we've never been able to in the past. And you know, who needs teleportation? Because now we can communicate live in 360 and have these chats. You know, this is here, this is now. The technology is actually here. We just won't see it in mass usage, I don't think, or really applicable within our tools probably for the next few years. But I anticipate that it's really going to be transformative for our lives.
Awesome. Okay, MaryAlice.
Just to add on, I have to say what Jamie had just brought up. I mean, I really, the program, it was, you know, eye gaze, and the eye replaced, you know, the mouse movement, and to be able to have a voice for the first time, and, you know, that real interest in being, you know, a content creator. And this is what this technology is allowing you. I get to be, you know, my own director of my own learning, creating content, not just consuming it. And so I can't even wrap my head around, like, I'll age myself about George Jetson, my boy Elroy, you know, that doesn't seem that long ago. And that was all just a cartoon, and it's already here right now. So to even imagine something, you know, 5 years from now, what everybody has said about wearables, but the most important part is that we will have more opportunities for all learners to really own their learning. And that, to me, is the most exciting part of this conversation.
Well, and it can just bring everything together. I mean, data-driven instruction, where, you know, you're asking questions and you're able to kind of look at students and say on your glasses as a teacher, know which kids are getting it and which kids are not. I mean, we have all this great assessment technology, but, you know, where's the privacy? So, you know, it's real easy for kids to figure out who knows it and who doesn't still, but it could be private for the teacher. You know, augmented reality just has so many opportunities, you know, beyond just what we see in Minority Report and these, you know, famous movies that kind of showed it. But, you know, I think it's just very exciting, and we need to understand that augmented reality is going to happen and is happening, and kids need to understand how 3D works, how to design in 3D. And it's interesting because some schools are putting back in woodshop because kids don't know how stuff fits together to be able to even design in 3D, to be able to take it into augmented reality. So it's like we go back full circle. Okay, let's get out the drills and teach woodshop. So now they can do 3D objects and know how stuff fits together. And could we do a virtual woodshop, you know, so that they don't cut their little finger off. You know, they're cutting and they're doing things in virtual ways. There's just so many exciting things that we can do. And I was wondering who wanted to answer Peggy's question. She just typed in a question of how do you convince parents and administrators of the importance of using AR in the classroom? Rochelle, do you want to briefly address that one?
That's funny because I was just typing a response to it. Yeah. The one thing that I found, it comes down to like telling the story and telling your story of what you're doing, and even just having the students tell. I know that there's so many times that I've done professional development sessions, or we've all been in them, and it's one thing to hear from the teachers who are presenting, but when you hear the voice of the students, that is such an impact. And in my school, we've had a STEAM showcase, and we've had parents in the community come in to see what they're doing. But even when that time is not available, inviting, you know, other teachers, even parents, if they're available, and your administrators to come in and see what the students are working on, or even just to explore it on their own. I know that I had taken my Oculus Go to school 2 weeks ago, and my principal was all over the place with it. I mean, he knew how to use it before I even knew how to use it. And so we've been talking about, you know, how much we can bring into the students, you know, even if we just had 1 or 2 of those for them to explore, but actually being able to try it out and realize, you know, what the difference is that it does for learning. It's not just a toy. It's like you can actually explore and learn so much more from doing that. But it's one thing to talk about, another thing to actually let them try it on their own. I think that's key.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go and tackle another question here. So we want to build our PLN, and Jamie, I'm not sure why you're on there, probably because you didn't want to brag about AR, VR in EduChat, but that's definitely a PLN builder. We'll go ahead and let you go here at the end of this. But we've asked our panelists to help us build our PLN relating to augmented reality, because this is such an emerging topic and the pedagogy is rapidly transforming and changing as many apps and tools are evolving very rapidly. So we want a book, a way to build our PLN, and a face-to-face meetup group, because we know that relationships are still very important in getting to know people. So MaryAlice, you start with us. Help us build our PLN.
I've got to go with Learning Transported by Jamie Donnelly as the book. There, Rochelle's holding it up right now. And, you know, the idea of really connecting with the AR, VR, and EDU community through the chats, whether it's in the Voxer group, that to me is the place. Like I've been at conferences with Jamie and it happens to be AR, VR, and EDU chat night. And so I'm literally doing the chat, you know, with her. And I love those opportunities because it's an actionable piece. We're like literally playing and exploring and sharing out and, you know, really building community together. So I can't stress that enough. And that's really the place to build up that PLN. And then the face-to-face, like I've gone to so many conferences where Jamie's done a scavenger hunt and you get to like, you get to meet up with different people and you are like that idea of movement, you know, and that true engagement with people as you're trying to like figure out I can't even count how many scavenger hunts I've gone on. And if I even look at myself at the very, very beginning, just like I was when I got onto Twitter, I like lurked for a while, although it was different because I'm literally was physically there. Like I would join a group. I'd want to like record, take some pictures, tweet it out, and watch other people do it first. And then it took me like, it was like putting my toe in the, you know, in the water, making sure it was warm enough to jump in. And then once I did jump in, I was doing it with a community. So those face-to-face meetups, Jamie, you're going to have to share the next time you're doing a scavenger hunt. I know it's probably going to be FETC. It's going to be the next conference you're at. I know I'm going to be with you at TCEA. So I'm definitely going to be doing the scavenger hunt with you then.
All right. So on to me, right?
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Well, MaryAlice took my book, but no, in all honesty, I mean, that is a tremendous book. And I have to just say it again, because it can be scary to start with AR, VR, because it seems like it's so intense and so complex. But that book is definitely one that anybody can pick up and work through and feel confident and comfortable getting started in the classroom, because there's just all of the questions that you would have are answered, and there are actionable steps and short pieces in there that she shares. And so, you know, that would definitely be one that I would recommend for people. And aside from books, I mean, there's always blogs that are being written out there and websites. So not necessarily a book, but I can go back to MaryAlice. She had those books. And even if you have a book that you use in your classroom, why not find an app, an AR app, and have something with that where you bring it to life, like using an app like StoryFab, or just making it a trigger for something with like HP Reveal and bringing the story to life. So I'll go on that one. To build PLN, definitely the AR, VR in EDU chat, the community on Voxer. And then the other nice thing too is a lot of these companies have programs, whether or not it's like an ambassador program, but even communities on, say, like Facebook. You know, there's different groups of educators that are either formed by, you know, the companies themselves, or somebody just created a separate group. And so those are great points of contact to reach out to somebody when you have the questions. There's always people that are sharing their own webinars or, you know, just tips, or going live and streaming different things that they're doing. So that's a definite way that you want to connect. And for meeting, you know, face-to-face, local conferences, or, you know, how about getting some people in your school to just try them out? You know, just grab some of your friends that teach different content areas, grab a viewer, pick up an app, and just a couple minutes here and there, just exploring, and then just start to connect with everybody else in the school. I think that's, you know, a great way to go about it. But there's definitely easy ways to connect, you know, but it starts like you, Vicki, you said about, or wait, MaryAlice, you said about like just lurking. Like when I started, I had no idea what was involved and how much learning there was on Twitter. So That would be my 3 answers.
Awesome. And we're about to go to Jamie. I always like to tell my teachers that I work with, because I'm a teacher and instructional technology. And those of you who follow my podcast are going to laugh, that innovate like a turtle. I mean, you just move forward a little bit. I take 15 minutes 2 times a week to try new things and to play and sandbox with these apps. And you just learn so much. And then when the kids get going, you're learning from them, because they can just do amazing things. I hope that all of us know that children, our students, should be part of our PLN. We should be learning from them too. Okay, Jamie, tell us, where do you go? Because you're one of the leaders in this field.
Well, I'm a learner. I mean, I don't think anybody could be an expert in this. Like you said, it just changes so drastically. And if there's not community to help support each other and what's changing, oh, you just get lost in it, you know? So what's so cool is that everybody kind of brings a different flavor to the community. I feel like my focus is very much focused on classroom resources that are already there. We have some excellent VR experts that are like heavy into some of the high-end, viewers or technologies that are out there. We have folks that are really into the development stage. I just love that everybody comes together and brings a different piece to the table for everybody. You know, it's the gain for everybody. So I will say that, when it comes to, going to conferences, I try to host AR, VR, and EDU meetups, because there's so many of us that we connect virtually, but to meet face to face, like Michael, Michael's in here, and Michael Harvey, I got to meet, he's clear across the world. And here he is, this huge enthusiast in AR, VR stuff. He'll jump in on occasion when his time zones don't have a huge conflict, So it's like when you get a chance to meet these people face to face, it is something that I think makes this learning go to the next phase, because you feel like that connection with somebody gives you more, it empowers you to take the risks, because you have a community to support you in those failures, or obstacles or problems or great, amazing things that happen. The community's there. So if there's anything in light of any technology, I think, we bring out AR, VR, and we talk about mixed reality. We talk about these immersive technologies very much on its own. My goal is that we don't talk about it necessarily that way. We talk about it as technology, because eventually people won't be segmenting it out. It's just going to be so interwoven into everything that we do that we're not going to call it out. We don't call out every piece of our technology in our cell phone. Oh, right now I'm using voice to chat, and let's do a voice to chat group. And hey, a whole community on voice to chat, that's just insane. But the technology that's there does some pretty cool things. It's just interwoven into everything that we're doing. And I think that while we're talking about it now and we're all really excited, I think eventually it will be something that just is interwoven, but the community is always going to be there. So I love it. I'm happy to be a part of it. And definitely at upcoming conferences, I cannot wait to connect with everybody. And hopefully we can all get connected face to face there too.
Yeah, sometimes a 5-minute conversation in a hallway at a conference will jump ahead, 6 months worth of innovation, because the light bulbs go on with people who are living it and doing it every single day. And we can't let the internet fool us into thinking we have relationships when we don't. It's still about face to face. It's still about getting to know people. And I would consider this face to face. I mean, we're looking at each other, we're talking to each other, we're communicating, and that's just so very important. So build your PLN. I would recommend all 3 of these ladies. We also have quite a few people in the chat who are in the AR, VR, and EDU. Here's the thing. We don't play King of the Hill. We make a bigger hill. There's enough room for everybody. We need educators to be innovative, because here's the thing. 2 of my 3 children have learning differences. Do not call it disabilities, because every child can learn. We have ways to reach children using these tools that we've never had before. So we need to take advantage of them, and we're just moving to some incredible things, because we know that using multiple senses. I mean, those used to, it was like learn from the textbook or the chalkboard and that's it. and when our textbook comes alive with a science experiment that opens out of the page, and we're mixing chemicals we're not supposed to be able to mix, and then a little virtual explosion happens but nobody gets hurt, that there's just so many things that we can do to open up curiosity and let kids really get involved in learning in a much lower risk way than we've had in the past. So
Vicki,
as we finish, go ahead.
Do you mind if I just say, I was just going to say one other thing that I put in the chat. I forgot to mention a second ago. So actually today was released. I put in the link here, but 3D Bear just released their new ambassador program. So if anybody's interested in being part of that community to get connected with us and with others that are really excited about using 3D Bear, this is a great chance to hop on board, and they're going to have some really cool things available and really a lot of that community building as well. So just open today, and I think it's just really neat to be a part of that.
Jamie, would you throw the link in the chat if you can find that? And I think that we've answered all our Q&As. It's 9:53. We had originally said we were going to go through 9:30, and then we were talking ahead of time and got so excited we said, 9:45, and now we're sitting here at 9:53. We do want to mention that our sponsor is 3D Bear. I will have a full review coming. I had some students do their Genius project on 3D Bear, and they taught me so much because you have a classroom, they can give things to you. You can pull in STL files from Thingiverse. You can design them in apps and then pull them in, from Dropbox and in a variety of ways. And it's just really an incredible tool. 3D Bear is fantastic. So they have sponsored this. I do hope you'll check it out. And they are giving a free trial for educators. So we've got the link for you right there. And thank you, Jamie, for throwing that in. And then also, if you have the information on the ambassador program, that would be fantastic as well. So thank you, 3D Bear, for sponsoring it, but also for saying, hey, I want you guys to have a conversation about augmented reality. So these are the folks to follow on Twitter, everybody. We want you to follow them. They're great. They're awesome. And ladies, do y'all have anything you want to add?
Just thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Great conversation.
Yeah, so this will also be emailed to you, and it's also on YouTube if you want to embed it into post. Just so much is going to happen with augmented reality and in virtual reality. There's some folks, so many people, it's easy to get excited about virtual reality, but I think that some of the bandwidth issues are definitely there. I know when I go into my mixed reality headset, as much as I love it, I have to go into the wire and it slows just about everybody down. So, there's just a lot of potential for both of these tools. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Jamie, for organizing this. This is kind of her brainchild. Thank you, Rochelle and MaryAlice, for coming in. Thank you for Michael. I got to get Michael. I got to get MaryAlice, some of these folks on my podcast. So I'm really excited about folks. We are going to stop streaming here in just a second. I had one person, Lisa Carlson, I think. Did you guys say you knew Lisa? Is she one of your AR and VR chat people, Jamie?
Looking for right now, Carlson. Yeah. Possibly. You know what? There's so many people that aren't consistent. I'm terrible. I know 10 people. That's not all I know. Lisa, but there's a lot of people in the background.
Lisa, did you still want to ask a quick question now that we finished the main part of the webinar? I don't know if she's still there or not, or if she's just listening. Because she had originally had a question, but we were right in the middle of finishing up. So if I don't see that, so I think, guys, we're just going to finish up, and you all will get a link to this as well as YouTube. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Signing off.
Thanks.